Okay, let's talk about ethics, and that's chapter 5. Ethics, one person's ethics is very, very different than other people's, but the generalized description and the definition of it is personal values and morals that impact a person's behavior, right and wrong. And each person is different. And what affects your ethics? Well, family, your friends, your coworkers, your previous experiences, your society, and a lot, your past mistakes. Your past mistakes, and then you see what happens from those mistakes. And it affects how you move forward. And if you've made a mistake that really hurt someone, you're probably not going to go back and do that again. And your friends, they always say, be careful of who you choose to be your friends, because that peer pressure from friends and family can affect your ethics. And another thing is what was considered unethical years ago may be considered ethical now. So your feelings about what's ethical may be different than mine. Okay. How do you make an ethical decision? When you have something that you want to do or you need to do, what thought process do you go through? Should you go through before you make that decision? I feel that there's 3 questions you should ask. Is it fair? Is it legal? And does it make you feel good? Now, if it makes you feel good to hurt somebody, then that's a different type of ethics. But if it makes you feel good when you have done it, in today's society, there's a lot going on about people helping people and the time of this COVID virus. And a lot of people's ethics are affecting that. And that's a big question that they ask is, does it make them feel good? So what do you do if somebody is doing something that you consider unethical? I'm not going to say it is unethical, that you consider it is unethical. So what do you do in a case like that? Well, if you truly think that it's unethical, the first thing you need to do is obtain proof that they're doing it. And then once you have the proof, show it to somebody. Say something to somebody, preferably your coworker, your supervisor. And if the company says it's okay, my feeling is probably want to look for another job. I had that happen. When I was a member of a trucking company, they were having really, really hard financial problems. Well, I was the accountant and I was responsible for payroll. And they asked me to write payroll checks that they knew would not clear the bank. And I told them, I said, that is not right. You need to talk to these people. They're expecting to be paid. I said, if you think that you're going to have the funds within a couple of days, then tell them that. But I am not going to write those checks, and I'm certainly not going to sign those checks. I don't feel that is ethical for you to do that. So at that point, when I saw that they were going to ask me to do something like that, I found another job very, very fast. And some of you are going to ask what happened. Well, the chief financial officer wrote the checks and signed the checks, and people were livid that they didn't know the checks were not going to clear. So if they knew up front, it might be different. So what are your morals? Morals are your personal standard of right and wrong, and that is different for everybody. And your values are the beliefs that guide your behavior. Okay, for some, it could be your belief in the church, it could be your belief in anything. So if you combine your morals and your values, that is your character. And your character is that unique set of qualities that define you. Who are you? And everybody has a different character. And the higher your character, normally means more honest and more fair. So what would you do if, and I'm not going to go into this very deep because we're going to have you do an exercise. Think about it. What would you do in the case that there was supplies and you need some pens or some paper clips at home? What would your character say? Or what about the phone usage in the on work time? What does your character say about that? So let's talk about confidentiality. Confidentiality. This has always been a real tough one for me because there are a couple different things, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to see if any of you know this. And there's two of them. There's FERPA and HIPPA. Whoops. How many do you know what these two stand for? First of all, FERPA, FERPA, is the confidentiality of your school records. And basically it's a lot more to it than just this, but it says that institutions like Fresno City College or any college that you go to cannot release information on you without your knowledge and approval. So when I was with Admissions and Records, we would get it a lot of times where a parent would come in. The child is over 18, so the child is an adult and must release, not a child, the student is an adult and must release that information. And the parent would come in, yeah, but I'm paying for it. I have the right to this student's information. And I would tell them, as the director, I would tell them, what you need to do is get the student's release, have them come in and sign a waiver to where we can release this information to you. Otherwise, the student is going to have to provide you with that information. In the same way, HIPAA, HIPPA, is the Health Information Protection Privacy Act, and that protects your medical records. So those are two big confidentiality things. There's other things that are protected, and one of those is customer records. If you're with a company, those customer records are private. Employee information, absolutely confidential. Company reports, financial reports, anything like that is confidential. And company information, all of that is confidential, and you need to know that and not release that information when you're on the job. It could cost you your job. So watch your confidentiality. There's different types of power. And I should have just stayed over here. Different types of power, in your book covers it. There is legitimate power, which is power given to you based on your title. And this is all in the textbook. Coercive power, and that is earned by your position. You can have coercive power, but coercive power is not a good thing. That means that you use your power as a threat against other employees. You know, an instance of that is you're threatening that you're going to cut their hours. You're threatening that you're going to give them a pay cut, or you're going to do a job duty change. You're going to reduce them in the job duty. Coercive power is the last kind of power you want to use. Then there's reward power, and that's where somebody offers you rewards. But they have the power, and they can get you to do something by offering you a reward. And that could be, like they said, if you complete that job super early, there's a $50 bonus. That's sort of a neat kind of power. Then there's connection power, and that is based on a person's power that you have connection with. So if I have connection with a certain vendor and I can get good prices, I've got some real strong power. So my boss may come to me and ask me, can you get this vendor to do this? I have a lot of power with that, with my boss at that time, because they need help. Then there's charismatic power. And that's when you have power because you're just that type of person. People are attracted to you. And you can make them smile at a difficult time, whatever. It's just you've got that certain power. Informational power is your ability to obtain information and share it. Not just to obtain it, but to obtain it and share it. So you have the ability to obtain that information. So that's what informational power is. The last one is expert power. You have power because of what you know. Say your boss doesn't know how to use a certain tool, but you just went to school and you know how to use that tool. Boy, do you have a lot of power over your boss because you have the knowledge. So you are the expert in that case. So those are the 7 types of power. And then to increase your power, what do you do to increase your power if you want to increase your power? There's many different things that you can do. You can gain more knowledge, go back to school. You can network with other people, make those connections that is going to help you. And make sure that other people know what knowledge you have. And you can use positive powers as often as you can. That in turn gives you more power. By using those positive powers, people want to deal with you. So in the same way, there's a term called reciprocity. And that is when you do something for someone and you expect something in return. Say Natalie needs help getting a project done. So you say, okay, I'll help you, but you need to do this for me. That is called reciprocity. You are expecting something in return. One good way to gain power is to help people and not expect anything in return. Okay? So every company has its own culture and its own values. You just have to get into a company and learn what their values and what their culture is. Whether it's a family business or a large corporation. Some companies even have ethics statements or value statements posted on the web or in their handbook. So make sure you're aware of it. And one of those big things for values is a conflict of interest. Do you have a conflict of interest? And how do you know if you do? Well, a conflict of interest is where you gain something, you benefit from some action that happens. And for example, if I am in the purchasing department and I own a business that sells office supplies, and I want to use my business to supply office supplies to the company that I work for, well, I am going to make a lot of money off of that purchase. So that is a conflict of interest. And the conflict of interest isn't necessarily bad, but you need to notify the company that you have a conflict of interest. Don't let them find out that that's really your company. Tell them, I can provide this to you, or my company can provide this to you, and they can provide it at a good price, but you need to know it is my company. So I hope that explains a little bit there. Now you've got diversity and discrimination in the textbook. What is some forms of diversity? Diversity is a great thing. It's wonderful to have people from different backgrounds, different ages, the genders, physical differences, capabilities difference, sexual orientation, religion, economic differences. It's great because more than anything, you learn from other people. You truly do learn from other people, and it's a great thing. It's a great experience. So, but some people don't like diversity in the workplace. So what happens then? And what really happens is it gets into discrimination. And if you feel that you have been discriminated against, what do? That could be anything having to do with the big ones. Sexual orientation, your gender, your religious preferences, your let me see here. What else could it be? It could be your physical differences, your physical abilities or inabilities, your religion, your sexual orientation, your economic standings. Any of that could be cause for discrimination. First thing you need to do is you need to talk to your boss. There's several steps. And in your handbook that you get from your company, they should have this covered, what to do if you feel you've been discriminated against. You should talk to your boss or to human resources. Or if you talk to your boss and that doesn't work, then talk to human resources. If they don't resolve the issue, then what you need to do is you need to go to the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. In Fresno, that isn't downtown by where the Greyhound bus station used to be. So it's right behind the Fulton Mall. So they are there to help with things like this, and don't hesitate to use them. I have. So, but you have to go through the proper channels within your company first. There's a difference between actual discrimination and people using like stereotypes. Stereotypes is when you look at somebody and you say, oh, I know that type of person. I'll use myself for an example. You can't tell that much from me, but I have red hair. It's pretty well dyed right now, but I was raised as a redhead, and I always got, oh, those redheads have a hot temper. Well, I have if you ask my husband, he'll probably say yes. And I have a shirt that says, I'm a redhead because God knew I needed a training manual. So, yeah, and I just live with it. I roll with it. Some people are very, very insulted by it. So, what are some of the other things that are stereotyped? Meetings are boring. Meetings are way too long. How about groups of employees? Accounting or computers. What do you think of them when I say that? They're a bunch of nerds. What about other types? And there's labeling. In that case, labeling. Do we ever label based on a race or a gender or sexual orientation or actions? Be careful. Be careful. We shouldn't. Because as I said, diversity is wonderful. Wonderful. So be careful of jokes. What about all those blonde jokes or those redhead jokes? They can hurt people, and it violates their rights. So just be very careful of what you do. And there are also cultural differences. There's a lot of cultural differences in our society today. And just a few of them are holidays. In Germany, Christmas is 2 days. There's Christmas Day and the day after Christmas. The 26th, 25th, and 26th is a holiday. Some people don't recognize Christmas. What about the same way with Easter in Germany? It's 2 days, Easter Sunday and Easter Monday. We have holidays that are not considered holidays in other cultures. What about gestures? Are there gestures that insult other types of people? And dress. We need to watch how we consider the dress. Don't make a big deal of it. And work days. What about some people who will not work on Saturday? How is that going to affect them on getting a job? So you guys could come up with a million more ethical situations, cultural differences, but that's the basics that I have. So let's take a look. That's it on that. Let's take a look at what you have to do. I have put here an ethics quiz. This is completely optional, but it's sort of fun. When you click into it, there's a link here to an ethics quiz. And remember, this is not the know-all everything that doesn't determine your ethics, but it's sort of fun to see how you rank on the ethics rank. Okay? Then after that, I've taken off the lecture chat, so we're not going to do that. You've got study guide questions, and there's a project on ethics. And on this project, it asks you to make a T-chart or create a table with work ethics, good or bad. I want to show you real quick. If you're in Microsoft Word and you go to Insert, for this kind of straight down, go to Table. And you want to make it 3 columns, and you can put as many as you want. And here, we're going to leave that first one empty and make this one good ethics, and then bad ethics. Oh, I'm not my typing. And put a couple of samples. I've got here, how about your phone usage? Try this again. Your phone usage. Someone with good ethics, what would they do? Someone with bad ethics, what would they do about their phone usage on the job? What about your lunchtime? Lunch or break time? How would each of these 2 people deal with this? And what about office supplies? Well, I want you to come up with about 3 or 4 of them and tell me how they would do. Then the last thing is, how would it impact the professional workplace? I mean, one thing I can say is it going to cost money? Is it going to make money for the employer? Is it going to cost money? What's it going to do to customers? So think about those things and go ahead and do that assignment, and that will take care of you for Chapter 5. And I'll see you next for Chapter 13.